So this is the Tesla Model Y, the world's best-selling electric car. Now there's a bit of a backstory on how it got the name Model Y, because you know about Tesla's Model S, the X, the 3, and this is the latest one, the Y. And you might be asking why, and I was asking why too, until I found out the backstory. And essentially the engineers, they were tasked with building this car. This car is based, as you can see, on a Model 3, but it's not the same. So the engineers asked, when they were tasked to build this magnificent hippopotamus looking thing, why on earth should we make it fat? Well, it's for the American market, that's why. So let's find out why this is the greatest and best-selling new electric car on the market. Let's get into it. So first, oh, I touched the glass. I shouldn't have touched the glass. But anyway, so first I want to go over the interior and things I find interesting in here. Now the first thing you notice, the windows are frameless, so this has got kind of a sports car feel. Well, it's not really a sports car, it's a 2-ton hippo, but still, it's nice. Solid door feel, solid handles, materials to touch everywhere. Really, really nice. I mean, people do criticize Tesla for build quality a lot, but I really don't see that. Everything you touch, everything feels so nice. No scratchy plastics. Even what's supposed to be scratchy plastics down here, it's not really soft touch, but it's not scratchy. Yeah, it's kind of soft touch. You can depress it a little bit. Now, the wood here, this feels like real wood, even though it's just maybe a thin layer. It's definitely not MDF or something like that. It actually feels rather decent to touch. All the materials that you are in contact with are nice. There's not that many things. There are not that many buttons. There's just a screen. You got these 2 scroll wheels on the steering wheel. You've got the drive stalk and then the indicator stalk. Very basic, very simple, but it just works. Now the door handle release is interesting. It's a button here, and there's also a regular manual release. I prefer the manual release, but it's cool to have a button. Now, next up, the seating position is rather high. This vehicle, I think it's quite a bit higher than the Model 3. It feels a little bit like an SUV. It's not an SUV, it's more of a crossover. It's not as high as the Model X, but still, when you're sitting on the road, and then, for example, if you have a car in front of you, something like a VW Touran, which is kind of a minivan. So yeah, you can compare this to the height of a minivan. This is slightly higher, I think, and it's a better seating position. Now, in terms of the general size and dimensions of the car, inside, it doesn't feel too big, but actually it's a rather large car. Now, in terms of interior aesthetics and feel, very minimalistic, as you can see. You got this large air conditioning vent, which is pretty cool because it can direct air pretty much everywhere. If you turn on the air conditioning and get into it, you can pretty much direct the flow of air, as you can see over here. And you can literally feel that in real time and how it changes. And there, this one's on as well. Very, very intuitive display. I thought I would hate the touchscreen and really hate non-physical buttons, particularly for climate control, but this is all cool, and it might feel gimmicky, but it's really not. It's quite practical and useful. I would still prefer physical buttons, but this feature cannot really be done with buttons. Another really cool minimalistic touch is how they've introduced the wireless chargers here. This really just looks like a regular soft touch pad where you can rest your phone or some other things like your wallet perhaps. But the cool thing is, when you do put down your phone over here and you take a look at it, it's going to start charging. And that's the same case on the other hand. So you can have 2 phones essentially side by side, you and your passenger, and they're both charging. Now that is something you wouldn't know unless you know a lot about Teslas and their features. And it's really cool how that's kind of hidden and not obvious, and there's no big large sign saying that this is a wireless charging station. So in terms of practicality, you know Teslas to be the most practical vehicles because you don't have an engine up front, you have more storage space up there, and also at the back you don't need that much space because it's an electric motor and the battery's on the floor. So you can optimize the car to have the most practicality of any sort of vehicle. And in terms of general interior storage, here you've got this. This is a decently sized cubbyhole. You can store probably not a 1 liter water bottle, but something a little bit smaller. And that's nice. That's probably going to break in maybe 10 years or less. And you've got this armrest center console storage as well. I like the way it is reasonably sized, deep, and it's got a light inside as well. as you can probably see. But it's odd that it's kind of sloped this way. I guess that's because the whole console itself is sloped behind, and you can't really do much about that. But it would be nice if it was a little bit more squared, perhaps. But yeah, you can't really complain about practicality in this thing. This is the most practical car. So let's take a look at the trunk. Come on. Oh. Ah, that's impressive. You just have to click open. You can't gesture control it. Nice. So, taking a look outside. If you go up to the front, this is rather high. This is higher than the Model 3. Interesting. Interesting. This is the typical test that most car reviewer journalists do. And of course I can't fit in this because this is not all that deep. But still, it's interesting to have any storage up front at all. And this is a solid floor with a tow hook. A nice solid tow hook. Good to know that you have something like that. And there's a tiny light here and a button that I think that's an emergency release, although I don't know who can fit here, and if someone fits here, I don't think they'd be smart enough to know how to use that emergency release. So let's close this back down and press it. Wow, that's really soft metal. Okay, now I kind of understand build quality things. I did not expect that to be this soft. This metal is really flexible. I guess that's how they actually do so well in the crash tests. This thing can really deform easily and quickly. Now more practicality. Let's get onto the boot. Let's close this door. Now, this is why you buy a Model Y and not a Model 3. This larger trunk space, essentially. Now, I believe in some regions you can actually have a tiny, well, 2 tiny seats at the back, but I think that would be frankly ridiculous to put kids there even. So, how does this fold? As you can see, I've not done this a lot, and it shows because I don't know how to open this. Ah, that's how you do it. I guess you can take it out completely, but I can't be bothered to fiddle with that. Over here is a decent amount of space. You can just about fit, I guess, and take a small nap. Oh shit, I did take this out. Okay, I guess I figured out how to get this down. So essentially, when you close the boot, let's see how it is. I should be able to fit in here just fine. I hope. Nice! Hello, I don't think you can see me because it's all shaded out. But let's look for the emergency trunk release, which is supposed to be easy to find. But I'm just dumb, I guess, because I don't find it. Huh. I actually don't know where the hell the emergency release is. It's supposed to be obvious, but it's not obvious. Yeah, so thanks for opening. I actually couldn't find the emergency release, which is kind of crazy, because there's an emergency release up front where nobody can fit. But there's definitely one here. It's just, why couldn't I find it? Where is it? Okay, anyway, moving on. There's more storage here, which is surprisingly deep. I guess you could also put a bag here, something you don't want to be seen, even though this glass is kind of tinted. This glass is tinted. But there's plenty of space here for a bag of some valuables. You've got the Tesla charging cable and what looks to be kind of like a tire repair set, probably. Let's have a look. No, this is the charger. This is just the charger. Okay, I guess something goes wrong with your tires. Good luck. From here you can actually put the front seats, well, the back seats forward as well. If I should demonstrate. Oof. Sorry. So we're done with the boot. Enough of that. Let's take a look at the back seats and how practical this car actually is. Now, getting in is very, very easy. The doors open so incredibly wide and there's so much leg room at the back. Now, I'm not a very tall person. I'm 173 centimeters, 5 feet 8 inches. So the back seat is really rather comfortable and spacious. As you can see, no one's sitting next to me, so the vehicle is really spacious inside. It is a larger sized vehicle, but I think the way they've been able to dimension this entire thing in this kind of very puffy kind of bubble-like form optimizes the space inside. So compared to another car of similar dimensions like the Model 3. You really have a lot more space inside, and thanks to this panorama roof and all the glass all around and this general shape, this whole thing is so airy and nice and light in here. There is so much headroom thanks to this panorama roof, which is pretty nice. This is really nice to be in this kind of glass cubicle. Visibility is also, well, the entire cabin feels a lot lighter because you get in some light, and it is tinted, so it's not all that terrible when it's sunny. But in general, the cabin feels so airy. You don't have a middle hump in the floor because this is an electric vehicle. You don't need a transmission tunnel. And in terms of practicality, you have vents here. They don't feel all that nice. They feel rather cheap, and it's not as sophisticated as the stuff in front. And you have two USB-C ports. That's nice. Speaking of charging stuff, you always want to carry one of these with you, just in case you run out of juice on the highway or something. You can just top up your Tesla, probably through one of these ports, or maybe through the wireless charger up in front. Or you could just use one of the cables up in the front, just connect it to one of these 20,000 hour milliamp power banks, and you're good to go for another 100 km. So last thing, I forgot to mention the key, how you get into the car. Now you always need to carry one of these with you. I hope you can see it. So this essentially is how you unlock the Tesla. You got to take this, put it up here, or you can just press the plus button, and then as you can see, the car is unlocked and you can just get in and drive. In all seriousness, the key is basically just a card, and you're supposed to tap it right here in order to lock the vehicle. I think that's well, it's supposed to work, and the only way you really know it worked is like you see the door mirrors fold in. You don't really notice the lights go on and off. I really don't like this thing because this is just like an access card, and there's no actual demarcated area to press it. There is the side blind spot camera up here, but that's not where the sensor is. The sensor is slightly below it, and you will have a bunch of scratches here if you keep rubbing a card against it. And this is all kind of glass and it's black, and over time you're going to notice that. Another thing is the door handles. They're quite interesting. They're much better than the Model S, at least the old ones on the Model S, because this is how you open it, and it seems a lot more reliable than something that needs to first come out for you to open it. So I don't know how this would fare in icy conditions, where if ice just froze all over this in the winter, then you probably cannot really press it. But I guess the car has some mode where you can heat up the vehicle, and hopefully I guess that works. The handles are also very solid, metal construction, no plastic here. Doesn't feel like a cheap car at all. So let's kick off the driving impressions with a little bit of acceleration. Be ready. Now this car can accelerate from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. It has approximately 500 horsepower, and it's the dual motor all-wheel drive variant. The car also has a reported limited top speed of about 217 kilometers an hour, which we will be testing shortly on the German highways. So let's get on to the driving impressions of the Tesla Model Y on the German highways. So these roads are near perfect in most sections, so it's a really beautiful driving experience, and you really get to experience all cars at really high speeds thanks to the de-restricted sections of the highways. Now that's not always the case, but as you will see, we will get to do a Vmax on this car, which is approximately 222 kilometers per hour. Now this is possible because the roads are so great and the car can sit really stable. And this car really does sit stable thanks to its 2-ton weight. Now electric cars are all really heavy, and they're better for straight lines than for curves, and such is the case with the Model Y. You really do feel the weight of the car once you begin to turn at higher speeds, even though the steering feel is rather fantastic and it really compensates for the sheer mass of the car. It makes the car feel a lot more agile at lower speeds, but once you get into the curves at anything above 50 kilometers per hour, you do unfortunately notice the weight. Now the car is really stable in a straight line, as you can see here. No issues, sitting perfectly straight, going up to its maximum speed, which is restricted, I believe, to 222 kilometers an hour. And one of the issues with these cars, when you get up to these high speeds, they're really good. They're quiet, but you begin to hear the road noise and wind noise naturally a lot more than all other combustion vehicles. And that is, I don't know if that's a nice feature or a not so nice feature. I like to hear the engine sound, and even though the overall noise in the cabin is far higher because of the engine, it doesn't feel like the road and wind noise are so loud. But since those are the only things you notice in a Tesla, it still feels rather loud, and you really feel the speed once you begin to feel the wind resistance. Until then, you really cannot perceive speed in this car. Unique things about driving Teslas are that you get a lot of additional features that let you feel a little hands-off while you're driving. That is absolutely not something I look for in a car, but for those that are looking to ease their driving experience, this is fantastic. On top of that, you have all the other features that protect you, like the blind spot camera that turns on, and all the other monitoring features. You can, it detects all vehicles, cones, all sorts of stuff on the road. So this is a car for someone that really doesn't want to be bothered while driving, and it makes it extremely easy to drive. One of the things I absolutely dislike about the safety systems is the lane departure warning system. It beeps every single time you get close to the lane boundaries or the lane markers on the road. I really like to drive close to the right hand side and keep to the right border on the lane markers, and it really dislikes that. Now let's talk about range. We started off this trip with 529 kilometers of range, and that was a full charge. We drove an actual 115 kilometers, albeit a really spirited 115 kilometers, but we were then left with 336 kilometers to empty. Now, clearly, we did not drive that much, so the range really did drop. The estimated range at the start is not the range that we can achieve, in this vehicle at least. This would be extremely frustrating if you had to park the car somewhere where you cannot always charge it on a regular basis, and also if you want to do longer journeys. As a city car, this is perfect. That doesn't really matter, 529 kilometers of estimated range. Irrespective of how spiritedly you do drive it, you will get more than enough for your weekly city commutes. But as soon as you want to increase the use cases of this car, that sits at the back of your mind, and it's not the most pleasant experience to have that weighing over. In terms of in-town driving characteristics and maneuverability, these cars are simply excellent. I really do not know how someone can manage to dent or scratch one of these. You really have to have no clue about what you're doing to be able to do that. So that's my thoughts on the Tesla Model Y. I look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments below, and let me know what you'd like to see in the next video.